Welcome, everybody, to the Lean ITSM channel. My name is David Smith. I'm going to be your presenter today. I'm the president of Micromation, and my topic is better IT service management using Lean IT thinking. This is all part of the summit series that's being hosted and put on by the Bright Talk channel in emerging trends with IT service management. So let's get started. First thing I'd like to do is to retell a story. Now, this story is not my story. It's actually a story by Gene, Kevin, and George. And it's a book that they wrote not too long ago called The Phoenix Project. Some of you might have heard about it. Now, this story, the way that it goes is it's all about an organization called Parts Unlimited. Parts Unlimited is in the automotive space, and they manufacture parts and they sell them, and they were quite successful. Until recently, in the last couple of years, they ran into trouble where their competition was starting to really take some ground, and it was all about e-commerce. So they initiated a project which they called the Phoenix Project. Phoenix Project was all about trying to get caught up with the competition and to try and find ways to sell and market their product to different market spaces that they had not previously been able to get success with. Unfortunately, the Phoenix Project has been behind. It's behind a couple years, and the company is now at a point where they are starting to lose share prices, and they're in very serious trouble, to the point where the CEO, he eventually fires the CIO. And one Tuesday morning, Bill gets a call. Bill's director in one of the operational areas, and the CEO asks Bill to take charge and to try and get things under control. And they basically have 90 days to make it happen. So Bill's really on the hot seat and is not quite sure what to do. So what Bill does is immediately goes to the office and he tries to figure out the current situation. So he starts talking with the various people, and he talks with John, the developer, and Bill himself, who's now been elevated to the VP of Ops. He also has other people in his immediate area, and so he speaks with Chris and Wes, who's in charge of distributed, Patty, who works for support, and Brent, who's in like a subject matter expert. What he finds out is essentially that the Phoenix Project has had a series of mishaps and delays, and each time they try and put something out into the live environment, there's been all kinds of problems where things don't work. They have to send it back. It causes all kinds of rework. It takes other systems down, and it's just been chaos. So they step back and they start to look at, well, what are some ways that we can actually, get this thing out to market? And some other players that come into the fold are Sarah. She's in charge of retail. She's the senior vice president. Sarah is very vocal, and she is really pressing IT for, trying to get this out. So there's a lot of extreme pressure to get this to market so that they can compete. But also there's another interesting character. His name is Eric, and he is a board member. And he comes off like Master Shifu of the Kung Fu Panda movie, but he's like a guru. And he takes Bill under his wing. And one of the things that Eric does is he takes Bill out to the manufacturing floor in Parts Unlimited. Now, the interesting thing is that Parts Unlimited is the manufacturing floor has been lean for many years. And they've got a pretty good system, and they make really good parts, and there's nothing wrong with that area. But what Eric starts to show Bill is that there are some things in lean thinking that can help him with service management and getting this Phoenix Project off the ground. And basically what Bill learns from Eric is three things, and he calls it the three ways. And the first way that Eric shows Bill is the concept of flow, and that's that work needs to flow effortlessly through the organization and in such a way that there's no bottlenecks, there's no backlogs, it flows very quickly through the organization. The second way that Eric teaches Bill about the lean process is it's all about quality. And in order to attain quality, everybody needs to have very quick feedback loops as to how well things are working. And as work flows through the organization, that if anything is wrong, that it immediately feeds back and the upline or upstream processes are, notified. And as a result of that, they can start to think of ways to prevent errors from happening in the work being done. And this introduces the third way, which is all about mastering the work that you do and becoming an expert and perfecting everything that you do. And so it's the culmination of these three things together that Bill takes back to the team, and they start to work through and putting simple changes in place that allow them to visualize the work that has to happen and looking at where there are bottlenecks and backlogs, and then figuring out what's causing the backlogs. And often it's to do with staffing, and Brent, who is their subject matter expert, often is the go-to guy, and he is overwhelmed with the number of technical issues that are on his plate, and they find out that they just need to kind of balance their workload. And then quality issues, again, are all to do with getting feedback loops. So if something does happen, he'll bring John in, and John and his team will, as part of the development, they'll start fixing things online, and so they all become much more cohesive as a team and working things together. And then overall, what the solution is, as you can imagine, is they have great success with that. And I'm going to not tell any more about that story because I don't want to spoil the book if you should go to choose to read it, and I suggest strongly that you do. It's a great book. So, as a preamble into today's agenda, what I'd like to do is now talk about, well, what is Lean and why are organizations adopting it? And specifically, what are the principles that make it work? And how can it make IT service management better? So I'm going to talk about examples of waste and what the concept of waste is, because that's key to everybody understanding those concepts. And then look at ways to maximize customer value and doing it in a way that we minimize waste. I'd also like to spend some time looking at the differences between Lean and ITIL, the IT Infrastructure Library, and other terms like you've heard most likely about DevOps or Agile and Six Sigma, and new ones that I'm introducing myself called Lean CSI. I'll also talk about how to learn more, so I'll show you some certifications and training available and give you some tips on how to get started. So, let's get going. The first thing I'd like to do is to try and understand a little bit about who is on the line. So I'm going to run some opinion polls here. I'm going to start a voting mechanism. And if you would be so kind as to read the question, and the question is, what's your experience with Lean IT, just so I can get a sense of how many people are on the line and what your experience is with it. And I can see that I've got a mistake in here. I missed one of my voting questions, but or hopefully they showed up on the screen okay. So if you could answer the voting. I see votes coming in, and I'm going to stop it in a second. All right, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to view the results. So I can see, okay, so we have a couple of experts, but I can see mainly that there's a lot of people that know a bit about it, but they want to know more, and that's great. That's good, because I think I have the right level of detail to cover with you. So let's get started. What's Lean all about? Well, a little history lesson. It comes from manufacturing, as you probably realize. The key themes about Lean are, looking for ways to eliminate waste and things in the customer's eyes that the customer is not willing to pay for. A customer will gladly pay you for things that they consider value, but things that are considered wasteful, they're not interested in paying for that. So we need to find out how to remove it. And in lean manufacturing, there are terms that they use that are Japanese terms, and some that you'll hear, muda, muri, mura. I'll get into that in a minute. But they're just different kinds of waste that you need to be aware of so that you can identify them and deal with them. The history of lean, it goes way back. I have to talk a little bit about the automotive sector. It started way back in early 1900s. We had custom production and then mass marketing of cars through Henry Ford, and then a number of players came along. We had Frederick Taylor, who was a productivity expert, Edward Deming. Most of you have all heard Deming and the Deming cycle. And then in the 50s, Deming works with Toyota, a Toyota production system, and they come up with the real fundamental about lean, and it's all about just-in-time practices and minimizing waste. That further gets enhanced with Six Sigma in the 80s with a company called Motorola, which is all about managing and getting to defects and understanding statistically what's the error rates and dealing with that. That was publicized well by Jack Welch through General Electric in the 90s, and then in the 2000s, healthcare sector and all the other service sectors go crazy with lean, and everybody's getting a lot of big benefit from it. And the main concept with lean is it thrives on environments where there's scarcity of resources. That can mean parts, it can mean people, it can mean knowledge, various other things. So when you have scarce resources, that's why you would consider using lean, so that you can meet your customer's expectation. Now, the Toyota way came from Toyota Sakichi. He had two very strong key principles, and they were all around continual improvement, and he instilled that into everybody's minds, that everybody was responsible for continuous improvement, and he really had respect for people. So making sure that he would go out to the floor, he would look and he'd see, he'd talk to people, find out what could we do better, and why do things work this way, and giving people the power to stop the production line at any time that they saw that there was an opportunity to prevent errors from being injected. And so these practices, the Toyota production system, eventually got nicknamed Lean. And it was a new way of thinking and acting. It was all about focusing on customers and eliminating waste. Management had a different style. It wasn't top-down. It wasn't command and control. It was more of a facilitator. And heavy involvement from the employee, because a lot of the great improvement ideas come from the employees. They are the ones that see it firsthand, and therefore they are the ones that drive a lot of the improvements. Now, how does this relate to Lean IT? Well, it's just an extension of manufacturing, where we take the same concepts and we put them into a service concept. And in IT, really our resources are people and knowledge, and our ability to apply knowledge and get things done. And so that's the kind of value that we produce in terms of services and products to our customers. So why are organizations adopting it? Well, first of all, let me state that it's not just manufacturing now. It's everybody's into this. So logistics companies. So if you're ordering anything from any of the postal services or couriers, they now have lean methods built into the way they distribute things. The service sector, if you go to a hotel and you go to book a room, retail space, healthcare, heavily into healthcare, even construction and maintenance companies, and is now heavily moving into government and IT. So a lot of organizations have seen the benefits of adopting these practices. And there's lots of great success stories, and they're growing day by day. So big companies, United Airlines, Harley-Davidson, TransUnion, Flextronics, Clubcard, and the list goes on and on. So why would IT really care about this? Well, there's some things going on that I think we can all recognize. First of all, it's very challenging these days in IT. The whole idea of doing more with less, it's a burnout in some situations. We're constantly putting out fires. Our workload's increasing. There's all kinds of new risks that we're dealing with. There's change going so fast and so crazy. It's very difficult to keep up. And then on top, trying to figure out how to continually improve, well, there's just not enough time in the day, and often it's the continual improvement that often is not taken advantage of. Now, that being said, other things that are happening, we've got these big, diverse, disruptive technologies happening, and the biggest one right now is cloud. A lot of providers out there offering really good, easy, fast, cheap, good services. And hey, guess what? They're marketing them directly to the business area of the organization, so the businesses are buying direct. In some cases, they are managing them themselves. This is causing a phenomenon which we've seen back in the desktop days called shadow IT. And, it's creating a bit of challenge. And so those are the areas that are going on that I know that we can help. IT service management specifically can help with all these areas. And so that, if you step back and look at, there's a lot of managing that needs to happen for disruptive technologies. And we refer to what we call the SMAC stack, or social, mobile, analytical, and cloud computing. And these areas here are very opportunistic that IT service management, I believe, with lean practices, can do a very good job of helping the business manage these particular new disruptive technologies. And the reason is lean helps us be better in all kinds of different ways. It helps us better focus on our customers, what their needs are, what value that they want and what they don't want to pay for. It also helps us focus on doing things more economically, so lower costs and quicker time to profit. And also, it's great for our processes. It shortens the lead times. There's less waste in getting things done. And it's wonderful for the employees themselves because they now have a really strong sense of self-worth and a big desire to be masters at what they do. And when you're really good at something and you can see how you're contributing to a bigger picture, there's just great job satisfaction and high morale in achieving those things. So all of those things benefit everyone from different perspectives. So now let's talk a little bit about, well, what exactly is it and what are the principles? And there's a pretty common diagram that's used here. And at the center, the principles are, it's all about the customer. So what is it that your customers perceive as value? And you have to first identify, well, who is the customer? Because it can be different for different parts of the organization. So in some cases, the end user or your internal IT supports the business, and in other circumstances, maybe you support external customers that buy your services, or maybe you are a process provider that supports another process, and so your customer is a downstream process. So these are different forms of customers. And then we have to ask, what do they see as value? What's important to them? And if we ask those questions, they'll tell us that, I need things quickly, inexpensively, good quality, and so on. And so once we understand those items, then you look at the top circle, we need to provide value to them through activities, and this is referred to as a value stream. Value streams are similar to what we're used to in IT, where we talk a lot about processes. It basically is the processes, but it elevates it up to more of a macro level. And I'll show you an example of this shortly in some of my other diagrams. But this is the way we deliver the value to the customer and the steps and the activities that we do to complete and render that value to them. And how we do it, first of all, is we want to make sure that our value stream activities flow effortlessly with the least amount of waste, and that it's all based on just-in-time approaches and trying to even out the variances in terms of the amount of demand and requests being placed on us. And there's another notion of pull, and that's that we only do work when there's a trigger to do work. A trigger is a request in order to fulfill some kind of a requirement. And between pull and flow, it's very important to make sure that we've got the right skills balanced in the right way and that we don't end up with backlogs. And so we're looking for ways to minimize backlogs and making the work flow as quickly as possible through the organization. And then finally, the last principle is all about perfection. And this is making sure that we error-proof all of our activities right at the source so that errors can't happen or very rarely happen, and there's no rework that we have to do. And so if you do that at the source and error-proof things right at the beginning, then there's less likelihood that we'll inject issues into the live environment. And so those are the key principles of what lean is all about in terms of the guiding principles. So how can we make lean help us improve IT service management? So let's connect the dots. So first of all, I attended a really good presentation by Niels. He's a principal consultant at Quint, Wellington, Redwood. And he took us through some slides which I'm sharing with you here. And first question is, why should we bother improve ITSM? And I think there's pretty obvious reasons why. We want to make sure we have high levels of customer satisfaction and that they're getting good value for money. that we're delivering quality services and we're performing very, very high, and that people are motivated and able to, do a good job. Now, the traditional options for improving IT service management, we've seen these shifts over the last 10, 12 years. In the early days, it was all about process. And so people would focus on, maturing their processes, and there was, best practice maturity assessments that people would go through, and they'd figure out, where am I on the capability scale? Then it got a little more fancier, and it went to looking at performance-based improvements, where there was a lot of benchmarking against other organizations and looking at things more on a unit of work basis. And now what we're really focused on is the third wave, and this is lean IT, and really focusing on value. And what it's all about is focusing on changing the behaviors and attitude of people that work in IT so that we're all focusing on delivering high value, least amount of waste, and at good quality. And so those are the characteristics that are at play to actually improving. So, let's talk a little bit about IT service management and lean. Where are they complementary and different? So first part is lean or IT service management, started as a best practice framework. It's got wonderful examples of, what practices should look like. Lean is more of a change methodology. It's how do you get things in place very quickly. IT service management talks a lot about definitions, whereas lean uses principles. IT service management focuses on processes and functions, whereas lean focuses on value to customers. And finally, IT service management focuses on IT work, whereas lean focuses on the flow of work and the value that is transferred to the customers. Now, some differences that need to be pointed out is that since IT service management focuses on the process, lean focuses on value. IT service management really looks at resource efficiency, whereas lean focuses on the efficiency of how the work flows. IT service management looks at process metrics, lean looks at customer metrics. ITSM focuses on policies, whereas lean focuses on solving problems that are preventing the processes. And then finally, IT service management is more of the what should be done, but lean focuses on more of why and how. So it's not to say that one is better than the other. They actually complement one another because they give it a much more holistic focus. So lean allows us to focus in a different way to enhance IT service management. So where IT service management focused on expense of people having enough work, lean makes sure that it flows quickly as possible. IT service management thought that inventory of people is okay as long as people are not idle. That's not the case in lean. They look at making sure that the inventory or backlog of work is very low so that we're agile and we can move quickly when we're asked to do different things. IT service management persons are not working on something that's considered wasteful, whereas in lean, doing unnecessary work is considered wasteful. And then no time for improvement in IT service management, whereas in lean, there's time carved into it. You're expected to do improvements every day. And finally, IT service management is a stressful environment, whereas lean is low stress. So these are some of the areas that are an extension of an improvement to IT service management. Finally, how do the roles shift? There is the same roles, but they have a slightly different focus. Previously, IT service management were seen as policemen, whereas now they're facilitators. And instead of focus on the process, it's really focusing on results to the customer and ensuring that everyone follows the process is now evolving to communicating the needs of what the process needs to contribute. And then finally, work hard to implement future state is evolving towards working hard to, extract and get to the root cause of problems and prevent them from happening to achieve better results. So these subtle shifts help us to deliver a better value proposition. And we still need both. But here is an illustration of how that can happen. If you step back and look at what really do IT customers consider value. There's three very simple things. And you could boil them down to advice. They want advice on how to use IT and to take advantage of it. They also want new capability. So when new technologies come along, they want it quickly so that they can, have an advantage. And then finally, for the equipment that they do have or systems that they have, keep it working and in good order. Now, IT service management is using the lean, the traditional lifecycle approach, which is taught in ITIL version 3. Strategy, design do address advice. Design and transition do address giving new capability, and transition and operations and CSI do address giving support. The benefit here is that with lean, if you put it through a lean lens, it determines the best way of how to deliver that service for maximum value. Things like faster, better, cheaper, and more useful. And so the two work very well together in improving things. Now, an interesting comment from Paul Hoekstra, a solutions architect, commented to me on this presentation, actually, about how he viewed his experience. He had worked at Oracle and implemented IT service management, and then he also had an opportunity to work at Rovi in developing a lean group. And he came up with the realization that, ITSM is good at building roads, but lean really strives to make the cars, trucks, and buses drive with the least amount of waste, and both are needed, and they reinforce each other. So those are the connections between the two. Let's take a look at what the concept of waste is. So first of all, waste is work that adds no value. And there's examples here on this screen that talk to things like, reporting technology metrics to the business managers. Well, hey, guess what? They don't care about that stuff, so you're wasting their time. Or, firefighting repeat problems. The same incidents over and over. That's wasting time. Let's get to the root cause and figure out what can be done about it. Substandard project execution. Errors being introduced in software deployments. All of these things cause rework. They're not necessary to the organization. Customers don't want to buy it and pay for it. Now, one of the things that when you go through and start to understand lean, we spend a lot of time talking about what is waste and how do you recognize it. And I introduced these terms earlier. So MUDA is all about unnecessary, non-value activities. And those are the things that if you identify, you should stop doing immediately. But there's some other more obscure types of waste, and one example is MURA, which is variation. And that's whereby maybe you have workloads that are, spiking, and then, peaks and valleys, or maybe even quality levels where the quality is good one day and it's bad the next day. Variation is also a form of waste because you can't, predictably produce good results. The third type of waste is MURI, and that's where there's inflexibility in the system. And often having the wrong mix of staff training or maybe old policies that are outdated, they sometimes will, cause overburden because that's the way we've always done it, but it doesn't apply anymore. So that's another form of waste. And so those are the things that you need to be able to identify quickly, and everybody needs to be able to put those types of activities into buckets and look at, okay, what kind of work should we continue to do, the value-added work, things like development, operations, delivery, advice. And then there's other categories, like sometimes there's things that you have to do. It's necessary, but it doesn't really add value. Now, things like recruiting and accounting, well, hey, we have to do those. We can't not do them. But customer doesn't necessarily want to pay for that. But those areas still need to be done. And then finally, the third is the unnecessary non-value-adding work. That's what we referred to earlier. There's an acronym we use called TIMWOOD, but it's things like transportation, inventory backlogs, waiting, overproduction, underproduction defects, and underutilization of resources like staff. So those are examples of different kinds of waste. So how does lean maximize value and minimize waste? Well, what it focuses on is making sure that the value-added things we optimize, we do it the best we can. We try to reduce the necessary non-value-added things and completely remove non-value-added. So those are opportunities to actually streamline your processes. And how we do that is in Lean, there's tools, one's called value stream mapping, and where you take a value stream, and here's a simple one for incident management delivery. And the context is that customer, has an issue, and really incident management can be broken down into 4 stages. You register the incident, you diagnose it, you repair it, and then you restore it. So if you look at how long does it take to do this and how many times does it have to be reworked, how many times does it bounce from one person to another, and you start to measure these particular areas, you quickly can identify how much is actually being done that is value add versus how much time is the work sitting idle, or is it doing activities that really aren't generating value. And if you map this out, you can clearly see that a good chunk of time, there is a lot of work that's not flowing, and there's a lot of activity that's happening that's not generating value. And so if you look at this timeline here, and all these little blocks are color-coded, and they indicate different types of work being done. But right now, in this case, green is good. Gray you can't deal with because it has to be done, but it's not delivering value. But the real opportunity is the red and the white areas. So if you were to remove them, you would actually be able to reduce your lead time considerably and improve not only the speed at which work flows through the organization, but also the amount of effort that it takes to produce that work. So that's really the magic in how all that happens. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about what are the differences between some of these terms. Here is a case where ITIL versus Lean. So people are asking, what's the difference? Well, I kind of alluded to this in this presentation here. ITIL, or IT Service Management, is really, what should we do? What are those practices? What are the frameworks? Whereas Lean is why should we do it and how should we do it? So the why and the how really is driven by what the customers see as value, and the how is what's the most efficient way that we can actually perform that type of work for the customers. Now, other concepts you probably heard about, Agile, DevOps, what's that all about? Well, hey, guess what? Agile and DevOps really are subsets of Lean. They came from Lean. Agile's all about how do you make the development environment very quick in producing new functionality, and it takes advantage of different Lean techniques to accomplish that. DevOps, same thing. It's a focus on making and improving the relationship between the development group and the operations group and making them seem more as a cohesive working team focused on a single goal of getting good quality functionality out to the business units as quick as possible. And it uses Lean capabilities and techniques as well. So these are offshoots of it, given specific names for certain focuses. Lean versus Six Sigma. Well, Lean is a methodology that focuses more on the people aspect, whereas Six Sigma is really good at determining root cause. So it is an extension of Lean and a great tool to use because it has a wonderful data-driven approach to look at where errors are happening within a process or a system or a technology. And so it's great extension in helping improve Lean be more effective. So it's a tool. And then Lean IT versus Lean CSI. Well, Lean CSI is something that I'm promoting myself over the last year, and basically it is a lightweight improvement methodology purely based on using Lean techniques, methods, and practices. And you could describe it as taking Lean and applying it to our traditional continual service improvement process within ITIL. And so the thinking here was providing people with a better way to deliver more value when you have limited resources, because today people are so busy, and it's empowering them with lean thinking and using Six Sigma tools, methods, and techniques. And the way that it works is using a methodology which I call the domino effect. It helps create value more quickly through less effort and focus. And how it does it is there's a number of components that you put together, and you build a plan, and you start from the right and you work left. So you kind of work backwards in building your plan. And this is working from the outcome backwards. And so you start with a strategy. What is it that you're trying to do in terms of delivering value? And then you step back one layer and you ask, well, what are the enabling factors that would help you achieve that strategy? And that could be in the form of people, process, technologies, etc. And then you step back another layer and say, well, what are the challenges that are preventing those enabling factors from achieving your strategy? And then finally you go back one more step and you say, well, what initiatives could we put in place to remove the challenges or barriers to make those enablers much more capable in achieving that strategy that we were focused on? And you support this with controls, and the controls are things like measurements and artifacts and evidence that you are on track. And there's a lot of thinking going on right now, and lots of books using lean measurements to make sure that you test things and you keep things on track and controlled. So when you work this backwards and get this all laid out, and you focus on getting input from everybody, what happens is that you get a lot of focus on what's important. People start to connect the dots, and they see, oh, I see why you're doing this. And this starts to create alignment with all the individuals so that when you actually come time to execute, it's as simple as pushing over the first domino, and all the other successive dominoes fall into place. And you control them by measuring and making sure that things fell in track. Hey, guess what the result is? You get higher success rates, and it's mainly because of the people. It's because they were on board. They were involved with it. How does this happen? Well, we use lean CSI techniques. One is something called a value canvas. And this is a way to put a single business case on a piece of paper and using it as a communications tool to get people thinking about, how to accomplish making an improvement. So it's a planning tool. It helps drive a stronger value proposition because people provide feedback and they embellish it and make it better. It increases alignment. And it really is the story board that you carry around and visually transfer this desire to achieve something. And as a result of that, it creates the compelling plan that people embrace and help you achieve it, and they can see how they contribute to it. So an example of what one might look like, it's very simple. It's sticky note level of detail where you have outcomes that are supported by managed enabling factors, and then there are issues that are known that have initiatives that are tied to it, and then you have measurements, artifacts, and evidence that support that. All of this then needs to be put into a CSI register. The register allows us to be more successful in affecting change. So it's a change control mechanism. And it's making sure that we track the work being done and that there's assignment and visibility to the overall progress, and people can work together and making sure that there's transparency and that it can help visualize work being done. So that being said, let's talk a little bit more about where do you go from here if you want to know more. And the first thing I'd like to do is run another poll. This is poll number 2, and I'm going to start it up here. And I want to know, where is your head at in terms of your decision-making process about lean? Have you already implemented it? Are you planning to in the next short while? Is it something that, is on the horizon, or, geez, still not sure, still trying to research it? So if you would be so kind as to vote, I'll turn it on. There's the start of the voting is happening. We'll just give it a second here while people start to put in their votes. Where's your head at? Okay. Any votes? Okay, they're coming in fast and furious here. Just give it 2 more seconds. Okay, I'm going to stop and we'll take a look at the results and see where people are at. Okay, so we're still pretty much, in some cases, in the early stages here. People still researching. Some are considering the next 3 months, and then some have already got it implemented. So there's a few people who are out there. It'd be very interesting to hear from you what your experience has been in your journey of this. Okay, so for those that are still exploring, here are some options for you. First of all, there's a new organization called Lean IT Association. It's a global standard that's been put together by a lot of the same players that are very involved in the IT service management space in the certification scheme. So this is an organizational group that's formed. They are worldwide and sharing best practices. So whether you take training through any one of these organizations, you're going to hear the same kind of quality instruction in terms of how to use lean practices to drive benefits into your organization. The certification scheme has 4 different certifications, and it works like this. The first one is foundations. For people that want to know how this all works, you can take a foundations course. 2 days, it's a certification. Then for people that want to become an expert at it, there's another layer called Lean IT Kaizen. And this is for the people that want to apply it, and they need to know how to do root cause analysis and actually drive change in the organization. And then finally, for the professionals, how do they implement and strategize and mobilize, organizational points of view? And this is where we've got Lean IT Leadership and Lean IT Coaching. And these are more, executive management kind of thinking roles. And these are all certifiable roles as well. And I'm not going to go through the details of this, but the slide deck is included in your attachments for your reviewing. But here's kind of what the certification schemes and training courses look like for the foundations, as well as Kaizen, which is a 3-day course. And all of these have, obviously, exams afterwards. Lean IT Leadership 3 days, and Lean IT Coach is 5 days. So you can see there's pretty intense learning available to you. Lean CSI we also run. It's a 2-day class, and we add a 3rd day. And this is more of a lab type or clinic type workshop where we actually apply these principles to real world situations. And often, depending on who's in the class, we use your examples to illustrate how to apply these particular areas. So, wrapping up here, tips on getting started. So, stop wasting your resources. Let us help you figure out how to get moving. I've included in your handout kit what I call a Lean IT Starter Kit. We have a lot of free things on our website that you can go get the CSI Value Canvas. There's web orientation that you can listen to on YouTube. We've got lots and lots of blogs on how to do some basic things. We also have education. So if you want to get Lean IT certified, we have virtual classes that we run every month and a fairly big list there. And we also have Lean CSI. And then if you want help getting going, we can offer all kinds of areas where we can coach you, or we can help actually come out and run a project for you. So we can do Kaizens, we can do Lean CSI workshops. And so that's in your starter kit to get you thinking about how to get going and to learn more. We are micromationinc.com. We focus on increasing customer value, helping you come up with better products, reducing your time to market, figuring out ways to deliver more cost effectively and reducing your risk, to give you more time to be innovative. That is our space. And I'm wrapping up now, and I do have a few minutes here for questions. So if you have a question, you'll notice a chat box on your screen. You can type them in, and also I would also ask if you would be so kind, if you could rate this presentation to let us know, how we're doing, so that we can use it as input to improve future presentations. So I do have one question here I'll start with. What tools have you used for the CSI register? What ones have been most effectively used, or effective and easy to use? Okay. We have a CSI register tool that we created some time back, and actually we have 3 versions of it. We have one that's just an Excel spreadsheet for the single user, very great for going through and jotting down what work needs to get done, and it's just a tracking list. But it has all of those components, and it aligns to the CSI value canvas that I showed you. We also have one that's more for small teams. It's on Microsoft Access. It's typically 5 members or less that want to collaborate together and work together. It's another one that we have. And then the third one is we have one on ServiceNow. It is more of an enterprise version of a CSI register, and it has it's an add-on application for ServiceNow users, and it allows you to put visual Kanban boards, and I didn't talk about Kanbans, but it's a tool to be able to visualize work and actually watch work being progress through the organization. So it has task boards, visualization boards. It's web portal driven, and that's on the ServiceNow platform. Okay. Any other questions? I'll see if any else come in here before I sign off. I see some ratings coming in. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I don't see any more questions, so I will stop here and wish you a good day. And thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope to see you again on Lean IT Service Management and talk to you on future opportunities. Great. Okay. Thank you. Bye now.